So here is day 50 with Eton. And here you can see it's actually kind of a brisk morning in Georgia, thus wearing the sweatshirt, but working on putting his halter on. He's gotten pretty good about this, about letting me put it on. He sometimes gets a little nervous about me tying the knot, but overall handled that really well. And it's definitely been a slow process with this guy, and he's made me work for every inch. But with every inch that we gain, it's an inch of progress we get. So I practiced a lot of walking in the barn and felt like it was time to walk outside. So getting him to walk, take a couple of steps forward. And he doesn't really like the edges of things, so you can see there's the brick and the edge of the barn. So that's where he's a little hesitant. And of course, leaving all the other horses in the barn. And then just working on pressure and release. And then I go back and reassure him, tell him it's okay. And I'm going to go back and use the butt rope. And you can see how his confidence changes a little bit as soon as he gets the butt rope on. Handles that pretty well. So now we're walking around the scary high jet. Again, just trying to work on keeping him kind of connected with me. Asking him to walk forward, pressure and release, put pressure on the rope. There he got a little nervous. So I'm just going to wait here. You can see his head's kind of arched up and he's very tense, but it's kind of the motion of the ocean right now that we have to get through. And of course, I'm yelling at my dog to move out of the way. Now we're walking a little bit better. Trying to make sure he stays with me. Now I have this other round pin set up, so smaller turn-up area that I decided that this would be a good place to kind of play with him. A little bit different surroundings. So I've got to work on getting him to step through the opening. So of course, he's a little bit hesitant, but he's doing better about trusting. Just working on getting him to take those steps forward, and he does nicely. So it's always can take a little bit of a deep breath. It can be a little nerve-wracking when you're leading them outside for the first time. So now I'm working on sending him around in the new round pin. Fixing my rope, which he's so much better. He used to not be able to handle any pressure like that. Working on sending him forward. He's actually doing really well, handling my student that's filming right next to the panel. The only thing he seemed to be more concerned about was my jacket. But before, he couldn't handle another two-legged that close, but he's doing much better. And he's finally starting to investigate a little bit. He's been so reserved about using curiosity. He's always, first thing to do is to run. But he's finally starting to do little teeny searches, which is nice. So I just give him that time right there to investigate that jacket. Now he's starting to trot a little bit better, getting him to yield the hind end. Still takes him a minute or two. Gave me a nice lick and chew. Now I'm going to work the right side. Now he's getting more confident with me being on the right side. Again, you know, in the beginning, he was very difficult about being on the right side, which is very, very typical of the Mustangs. And lots of people thought something could be wrong with his eyesight on the right side, but, which maybe, but my experience has always been that once they learn to get confident on that right side, then they seem to be fine. They almost prefer it on the right side. So you see he's walking pretty well going to the right now. He wanted to change directions. I wasn't ready yet. Again, letting him investigate that jacket. That's totally fine. Kind of wanting him to think a little bit instead of, again, just running away from something. And that was really good.
He's not avoiding me.
Then I let him yield and just wait a second, working on coming towards his body. Now I'm going to go back to the jumping up and down. Now, I didn't really have kind of a plan of what I was going to do with him today. Just wanted to walk him outside the barn and head into this new round pen. So sometimes it's just kind of based on a feeling of what I can do or see. So starting to just mess around with his energy while I'm jumping up and down, working on the right side. This is a big improvement from the last time that I did this type of exercise. So there I gave him a nice release of going away. Now I'm going to go back to just starting the beginning steps of how I can get on them. So putting a little bit more pressure on the neck, wiggling the mane a little bit, laying my arm on the shoulder. All that contact is the beginning steps, and then while I'm close, bouncing up and down. Then give him the reward of rubbing his face, getting a little closer, trying to stretch my right hand over his withers so he can see my hand over in the right eye. Was good, so I give him a little release, back away. I have to make sure I position him so his butt isn't to the camera because that's gonna spook him. So he'll be facing this way and go back to just rubbing. So you want to kind of change it up. Dropped his head there, was a nice moment. Go back to grabbing the mane. Working the neck again. And then adding the movement. And of course, he does his little snort and lick and chew. That was pretty good. And then just working on bouncing around. He's starting to learn to follow the crazy person. Again, just trying to do different movements. And he's still kind of searching to come to me, which is nice. And making sure I work the right side. Now, the moment he stopped there, I decided to release. And again, he's kind of trying to control the situation. So he wants to run now. Gonna work that right side. Then he stopped, and I stop. You can see he's just trying to figure it out. That was really good. Back to jumping up and down. Going back to touching him, using the rope a little bit. And then making sure I retreat. Take the pressure off. Now you'll see as I start to work them more, I may start to work the left side a little bit more. In the beginning stages, that's because I'm actually way more coordinated and used to using the left side. So here he let me kind of really get close and bounce up and down. And so what I've found is just in doing what I know and I'm comfortable doing on the left side, and then I can go back to the right, but I don't really focus on making them equal at the same time. Doesn't really matter. So I can just focus on getting on them from the left, and then I will go back and address the right, and they tend to be still well balanced on both sides. But again, once they kind of understand the concept, then you can go back to your weaker side and work it. So I'm going to do little things, but just knowing where I'm safe and comfortable and what I can push and where I need to stop. Asking him just to yield just a little bit there. This is actually really good. He's still a little tense, but he's handling it. Got to lick and chew. Again, I'm just kind of going back and forth. I do take some time where I let him just have a minute and stand still. But sometimes when you're in kind of a groove, like here, he's letting me touch my whole body against his whole shoulder and leg. And then I was jumping bigger, and that's kind of what set him off. So I'm just practicing now, jumping bigger, preparing him for when I do pop over. Going back to working that. That was actually really good. Now I'm going to let him move his feet around a little bit. Go back to doing the same exercise. A lot of repeat and then retreat. Now he's getting even better about me rubbing on him. You see I take my leg, touch him. That's really a big step. Getting them comfortable with you being in there, inside the bubble. That was kind of the first time I was able to kind of bounce against him and held weight. So he wasn't sure, so he shot forward and go back again. That time he held it a little bit better. I'm going to go back to rubbing. Again, just staying in the motion with him right here. And I let him walk around. Back to giving it a try again. I'm actually okay if they walk forward. doesn't really bother me. It actually helps them stay a little bit more relaxed instead of when they stand up and freeze when you get on. There, he dropped his head a little bit. And then back to bouncing and retreating. Now I'm going to let him walk around, making sure he doesn't fall in on my side. Again, this is kind of a big deal for him to even let me in the space right now, so I've already kind of exceeded my expectations because I had no expectation of any of this stuff happening today. That time he actually kind of let me get up there just a smidge. That was the big deal right there. Now I can pat him on the other side with my hand. And that was really good. So then I walked away, kind of gave him a minute, and now I come back to it. And again, he let me kind of get a little bit bigger jump up on him. They're not lasting longer than 1 or probably 2 seconds at the most, but you just can build on that. So again, that was like huge right there. Super big. He let me like get halfway on. So I'm going to give him a minute there. Let him lick and chew and think about it. Getting him used to seeing things on that right side. That time he was a little bit more prepared and kind of went, oh my goodness. But that's okay. That tends to happen. Sometimes you go forward a little bit, then you go backwards a little bit, then you go back forwards. And again, he let me stay on a little bit longer that time. Just trying to push just a little bit further. We're going to walk around again. And then I'm just going to do a little, because he would let me get on a little bit further and then he would get a little worried. So then I'm going to go back to only about half. That was really good. I'm getting him to follow my bouncing around. And then that was another really good where he let me put all of his weight on his back. So I decided to quit with that. And then we headed back to the barn. So he's walking a lot freer now. Pretty happy with how that session went. And getting him back into the barn, again, kind of the change in surface. It's a little hesitant. But he does like his stall, so that's kind of the easy part. And so looking forward to tomorrow.